Hello everybody and welcome to another Transformers third party knockoff, I guess. I spoke recently in my unboxing video that I'm kind of getting a little tired of the third party knockoffs. I don't mean like Rover. He's an oversized, kind of inflated version of the Maketoys Guardia, their Defensor. But I mean like when Yes Model does the Headmasters. I mean, they're pretty much exactly the same, and you can actually still buy those from Maketoys. And there was even talk of them bootlegging Galaxy Meteor, their version of Cybertron or Galaxy Force Starscream, which is bad. You know, it didn't really get a general release because there wasn't the want for it. I mean, I am king of KOs, but come on, if you can readily buy a toy and you can afford to buy the toy from the original company, please do so. You know, places like TF Direct, they stock the originals as well, so please go out and support the original third parties. There's been knockoffs of Hasbro and Takara figures for decades and it's not affected them whatsoever. They could have put a stop to it anytime they wanted to, but they haven't. People like the third parties, they have a very small profit margin and the KOs really do affect them. Now, Rover was sent by TF Direct for me to give my opinion on, see whether or not it's worth carrying on with. In my opinion, the Maketoys version of Defensor is probably one of the best looking versions of Defensor that there is. It's very, very IDW in style, but it's a nightmare to transform and put together. That being said, this guy is like twice as big as the original, so when you get it all transformed up into its Defensor, he is going to be nigh on masterpiece scale and should scale remarkably well with the Transformissions Menasor. Honestly, can't wait for that. Now, box is pretty standard. Again, we've got the Robot Fantasy. Whoever this person is here, he seems to be behind the KOs of Maketoys. This is a Yes Model, made in China. This is only suitable for persons over 16. Don't eat your toys, you will choke. That's the box. It's pretty small, lightweight on shipping, and rattles. Out of his cardboard prison, he comes packaged in this plastic bubble shell. We get the two guns that were rolling around in there loose, and we get an instruction sheet, deformation guide. That's pretty lengthy. It's still going. You know, that's a pretty hefty transformation guide for somebody kind of this size. Right, out of the package, we don't have to do anything to him to get him into his standard robot mode. He does come with these two rifles, as previously mentioned. Now, he can hold them individually, which is my personal preference, or they can attach together by pegging in, pressing firmly, and again, he just holds one of the handles. Just beefs up the gun, basically. And not a huge fan of that. Don't get me wrong, I love how the gun looks, but it's quite heavy, you know, and it does kind of bring him forwards. But it's each to their own. Plus, I don't like the fact he's got two handles pointing downwards. But, right, he feels very much like a Hasbro Voyager. Springer especially comes to mind from the Generations line. It's that sort of feel. Fairly lightweight. Pretty much one of the lightest products I've had from Yes Model. Now, I've heard scary tales about the joints on this. Head is ball mounted up and down. We can go left and right, and we can tilt from side to side. Shoulders come up fine, it's all ball mounted there. We can go all the way around. It's stiff, it's not terrible, but it's okay. I would prefer to ratchet in there, but beggars cannot be choosers. Upper bicep swivel, double jointed bend at the elbows. Wrists are on ball joints. We can tilt them up and down and rotate them fully. Waist can go round quite freely. Legs can go forwards and backwards, out to the side, upper thigh rotation, and a very nice soft ratchet on the knee. Ankle goes forward, backwards, left and right. Nothing really untoward. It just feels like a Hasbro kind of Voyager figure. There's nothing really scary. I mean, if anything, the soft ratchet on the knee is stiffer than the rest, but that's because it's a ratchet joint. Nothing at all there screams, I'm going to break. Now, Maketoys have always been experts at incredibly well balanced, well thought out figures, and the S model inflated version, I guess, pretty much stays true to the original. He's very well balanced, and you can pull off some remarkably dynamic poses. Height-wise, he stands around 7 inches. That's about 17 to 18 centimeters, and is somewhat a featherweight, weighing in at just 156 grams. That's 5.5 ounces. Now, is he masterpiece scale? Yes. Yes, he is. He's definitely the right scale for the collection. But is he masterpiece in looks and aesthetic? No, not at all. Aesthetically, he's definitely way more in keeping with the likes of your Transmission Menasors or your Generation Toys, MBK Gravity Builders. You know, they all scale really well, especially these two. That's a very good aesthetic. So if you have, say, your Gravity Builders or your Warbotron figures, I think this is going to scale remarkably well. Now let's just take a closer look. Paint apps are okay. There's not really a great amount of paint on this guy. It just doesn't really look like Streetwise, does it? It kind of bears a passing resemblance. That's the thing, Maketoys has this very kind of Japanese anime kind of style. I can't knock it because it's a good looking figure, but it just doesn't really look like its source material, I guess. I do like this translucent plastic on here, the red and the blue, some slight paint smearing on the top there. That's literally it. We have the sheriff on the side there. It's a good looking figure, slightly hollowed out thighs, but we do have some nice painted up wheels there as well. He's good for what he is. You know, he's not an overly expensive figure, and having it this size, you can really see and give props to Maketoys and their original sculpt, because it is a very good looking figure. It kind of reminds me of something from like one of the Brave series, or kind of a cross between Brave and Pat Labor. Right now, I'm sure you're all bored of me gushing over the Maketoys design, so let's get him transformed. Ball jointed hands, gotta love them. Right, let's get him transformed. Hold the hand, hold the hand, hold the hand, hold the hand. Up into his vehicle mode. The first port of action is to rotate his head 180 degrees and to untab his windshield like so. Give it a little spinneroony around with the head square. Push down. Rotate the arms upwards on both sides. Rotate the waist. The feet are on sliders. You want to push against this hinge, sliding it backwards. As you can see, we have this side window section in there. You want to pull this up and over, and there's a tab on the inside. You want to just line that up so it's square, and then slide and tab that back into place. Bring this back upwards, and there's two slots there which it tabs into. Open up this lower leg section, and we're going to fold the legs back in on themselves, and there's a slot just here that's going to tab in to this section on the waist, sliding that all the way in and then pressing and tabbing that in firmly. And to help secure this section in place, the legs themselves will tab together, as to will the grille section. You can just tab all of these sections in and bring that down. The roof panel pieces will line up and tab in eventually. And then we can just bring the rear window section over. Come around to these arms, open up this tab section, and looking at it from here, you need to pull this across, and as you pull it across, it's actually on a slider. It's a very stiff slider. Maybe this is what people were talking about with regards to stiff joints. As it starts to slide down, it should become slightly easier. But yes, right, we need to rotate this arm so that this tab here is going to tab back on itself. Bring the arm over, should line up, just tab that in. This is not fun at all. This is just not a fun transformation. Push this section back in, and these are going to kind of rotate round and just tab everything in together there. These sections tab in on the bottom, and then we can bring the doors back in. Finally, there's a tab here, and there's a big tab on the back which presses into the actual vehicle, and a triangle tab there which lines up here. So in theory we should tuck that in behind there first, shouldn't we? And then push all of this in. That on both sides, push and push. And there we have it. That was not fun at all, not even remotely in the slightest. That was a nightmare getting that to tab into there. I just couldn't line it up properly. It was hard to slide down on that joint. Yeah, there's Streetwise. Here we have him fully transformed up into his vehicle mode, and I can't emphasize enough that that was not fun whatsoever. There was no enjoyment in that. I can see why people got frustrated with the smaller, itty bitty tiny versions. The guns can plug in to the sides, and I don't like them. I don't like them because they are not symmetrical. I like my guns to look the same on both sides, so we're going to remove those. Let's have a look at the actual vehicle mode itself. It's not ugly. It does kind of roll, and like the sheriff on the side there. I prefer it if it wasn't on there, and I prefer it if it was more of the original kind of Streetwise colours. But that being said, you know, it's a pretty good vehicle. Size wise, it's not overly untoward. It scales pretty well with the actual Masterpiece line itself, but again, it's not the Masterpiece aesthetic. Now, detail wise, I like the grille. Again, the paint apps are pretty clean. Not a fan of these back window sections ducking down the way they do. Is this based on an official car? I have no idea. It kind of looks a bit kind of Chrysler-ish with that dip down back section there. Very Chrysler 300. But yeah, it just doesn't have a wow factor, unfortunately. Right, now to get him up into his limb mode, you want to just untab the doors and just bend this back section back and unpull the feet. We're actually going to rotate those around and bring this section back so that the feet are on top like this. Come to the legs, you want to just untab the front of the car and move it down. Basically, we're just going to angle this leg downwards, and when we bring it back up, rather than tabbing in to this tab here, we're going to tab into this diagonal tab. Now I've just pulled the doors off their ball jointed hinges just so you can see the angle that we're looking for. They've tabbed in nicely. It tabs in just the other side of this ball jointed hinge, and we should be left with something that looks like that. We just tab everything back together, and that is the arm joint. We don't get any of the accessories come with this yet. Nothing to join it on to hotspot. So yeah, that is pretty much what we're going to have for the top part of the arm. It's a good size. I do like how they've done that. It's very IDW, and obviously this is just going to form part of the arm, and the arm itself is a completely different entity, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually how a lot of the cartoons were drawn back in the 80s, so I actually prefer them to be kind of like clip-on parts, just because I kind of prefer that aesthetic. But I know it's not to everybody's taste. Now the question is this better value for money than the oversized Weijang Combiner Wars figures? The Weijang Streetwise is a big, huge, chunky figure filled with die cast, and if you don't like the Combiner Wars aesthetic, I have it on good authority that there is a KO oversized version of the C+ add-on kit for the Defensor, which makes it kind of very G1, and there's also KO versions of the Perfect Effects feet and hands, etc. being oversized. So the possibilities are there. I think it's completely down to your taste. If you want more masterpiece style, I think you're better off to go with the Combine Wars figures and wait for that oversized C+ kit. But if you want the IDW style, then yes, models, once they've fully completed Maketoys Defense Sword, then yes, that is going to be a very good IDW stylized figure. Thanks again to TF Direct for sending this out to me so I could give them feedback. It's not a bad figure, it's well made, but the engineering getting it into this vehicle mode, even at this size, is very fiddly. But I haven't managed to break it, so that's always a first. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. If you do like the look of this figure, I've included a link in the description below, which takes you through to the TF Direct site where you can purchase it. And until next time, from myself and Rover, thanks for watching. Goodbye.